Okay, welcome everybody to the CICMQ Zoom session. This time it's with Kinetic Consulting, and Gus. I'm very pleased that Gus Newby-Grant is going to be with us today, taking us through some of the things that we should be doing a lot better on Zoom. None of us, I think, profess to be an expert at this, and judging by some of the pictures that we can see on there now, we can definitely say that is the case. So what we're going to do is, because of the way that we're going to be working in the future, we need to be a lot better at doing this kind of thing, and that's why I very much wanted Gus to come along and talk to us. The good news is I've seen this presentation before. It absolutely makes sense. If you follow what Gus says, it will really help you. So I'm just going to make Gus the host. He keeps moving around on the panel at the side here. More and make host. Okay, Gus, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Well, never start with an apology, right? But I'm going to break the law. I've at the moment got 25 full of energy people. It must be a Friday that I can see and I can get some feedback from. My other screen has gone down, and so when I go to my slideshow, I'm only going to get 5 of you beautiful people to get any responses from. So I'll have to wing it slightly. Let me share screen now, and we'll go straight into it. Yeah, so the chosen few, I've got Atul, Sarah, Naz, and Chris. So that's my feedback range. Oh, I can admit Bryony. Yes, do I just click admit? Yes.
Just click admit, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome. This is slide 1 of 500, which is the best way to start how to present online, obviously. I am kidding. I'm going to be very simply running through some background theory, some top tips of things we do and don't want to be doing when we're presenting, whether it's in the person or whether it's in this crazy remote setting we're now having to use. And then finally, I'm going to bust a few myths, I hope, on the question and answer session. My belief is that it should be your friend and something you can use, a weapon in your arsenal to be able to influence and engage others rather than something to fear. Everybody with me so far? Great, getting the thumbs up. Okay, well, the first thing is, this is a leadership skill. Being able to present, influence, engage people. It's a leadership skill, and it's also a sales skill. It comes with many of our roles. When we're giving a piece of information across like this, we're either wanting people thinking something different or actually doing something different. We're in the art of persuasion, and the more we can engage people, the more likely we are to pass that message accurately. Let me put that in perspective. The Wall Street Journal, and this is the theory, did a survey a number of years ago in New York City. People leaving a presentation had a camera and a microphone thrust in their face, and they said, Chris, how was it for you? Sarah, how was it for you? And they asked basically their impressions of the presentation they'd seen. This was the response they got. 44% of people said the presentation was boring. 40% further said it was so boring it made them sleepy. As you can see, 3% lied. And I'm imagining the missing 13% were either asleep or dead. I've been to that presentation. I've also, this year, been to that remote presentation. And that's because the presenter failed their audience. A very clever guy called Albert Morabian did a 10-year study on what engages and retains and captivates an audience. He boiled it down to 3 different things. 3 different things. These are the things that ensure that the audience get your message, that they understand and that they're engaged and interested. Call it out. What are the three things? What do people think that a presenter does to engage and retain their audience?
Ask questions.
Good, Tony. So a bit of interaction. Ask questions. Get them involved.
Look the individuals in the eye.
Look them in the eye. Can't see who said that, but thank you. Absolutely. Eye contact. Harder in remote
Body
work.
language.
Body language. Thank you. What do we mean by body language? Expand, Massimo.
As in body language is in the whole body speaks for the speaker as well in terms of the content he's presenting.
There's
He,
something
believe,
big,
he
it's big.
believes this is connected to what he's presenting.
Good
Sound
stuff.
control, voice control.
Voice. Thank you. What can we do with our voice? So many things. We can emphasize. We can stretch words to make them interesting to hear. We can even be quiet and pause. Because when we pause, people listen. They tune in. There's so much we can do with our voices. That's two things, really. The body language and the interaction. The use of our voice. What's the third?
Humour.
Humour's part of it, absolutely. It comes with the third one. It's part of our message.
Preparation.
I'm going to admit someone, sorry. Joshua. Preparation, we'll come on to that. What's the third thing that I'm doing now?
The words you use.
Thank you. But Pam,
Yeah.
the words we use, our message, that's critical. If your message is wrong, not relevant, uninteresting, you'll miss. But what Moravian said was quite interesting. Because if we take the way we look and act, if we take the words and the use of our voice, what are the percentages that mean people are engaged and retained, do we think? What's look and act?
90%.
Blue.
Blue.
Oh, of course.
It's a major part. The way we look, the way we're acting, big part of how we engage and retain people. What about the word?
I'm sort of sending out outcome emails while I'm on this line.
Green.
Not sort of.
Green. And therefore use of voice would be red. Now, isn't that fascinating? The words I'm saying are critical. They are crucial. Your message is absolutely key. Never forget that. However, it is not the words that will engage, retain, captivate your audience. It's how they're delivered. And we do that physically, and we do it with our voice. And once we understand that, we can work out there's many things that we can do to help us in order to engage this audience. I've been working remotely now, as you guys all have, since March or whatever, and it's as critical now as it is when I'm normally in front of an audience in the person. Arguably more so in some ways, because I can't read the room. I've only got those 5 names. If I want to know that Tony's still with me, I've got to say, Tony, can you give me a thumbs up? Is this making sense? I wait for the thumbs up and then I can move on. It's not as easy as when we're face to face. So we need to work harder in order to bring people with us and engage them. The great news is that there's some things that we can do to help us. And a lot of this is about preparation. And that's about us making the effort to be good, to be engaging, to be the person that delivers what is right for the audience and not for us. It's never about us. It's always about what the audience need. For now, it's about you lot. And I need to give you what you need. There are things we can do to help us. Arnold Palmer, the golfer, and I'll misquote it, did a shot out of a bunker. It was an amazing shot out of the sand, and it landed exactly where he wanted it. And someone said to him, "Wow, that was lucky." And he turned around and said, "It's amazing. The more I practice, the luckier I get." And it's the same with being able to engage an audience. The more we practice it, the better at it we become. And we can do a lot of that before we even speak to them in terms of rehearsal and preparation. So some things to consider, and these are the top tips stage. First of all, background. I'll reverse my camera at the end to show you something else, but believe it or not, this is a wall in my house. Pre-lockdown, I didn't like it. It's a mood wall, according to my wife, and it was designed to have pictures put all over it. We've just done some decorating. And I thought, what an eyesore. It's sort of police uniform blue. It's very dark. It's the perfect background for presenting. So I love it now we're in lockdown. Think about your background, because it's got to be you that's the focus. Your body, your voice, your facial expressions, your message is what's going to engage people. Think about your background so that it doesn't become a distraction and it supports your message and the focus is on the right thing for the audience. Think about lighting. This room I'm in now has a big window at the front and a big window at the side and no other windows. But with the dark background, I don't even need the light on. Even now it's got quite overcast outside because the lighting is correct for you. You can see the face, you can see the expressions, you can see the body. That's important. So think about the lighting for you. Don't be one of those silhouetted presenters with a light behind them and they can't read the expression, they can't read the feeling. It's really important.
You know who you are. You know who you are.
That's right, Chris. We know you are.
Great. Face positioning. I had an entire call with Asia the other day, 5 really cool people, Japan, Australia, China, India, and one from the UK, weirdly, who was up very late. And we had a call, and one of the people was like that for the entire call. And it was literally a conversation with a forehead, which is very difficult, especially when they were speaking. And nobody on the call had the courage to call it out, which made it even more awkward until I said, right, enough's enough. We cannot see you. So just bear in mind that if you take your face away from the screen, you're taking a major part of what Morabian proved engages people and retains their attention. I would never dream in the physical presence of peering around the corner of a door of a room and saying, okay, moving on to the next slide. I'd be there, accessible, in front of you. And that's what we need to make sure we are when we're presenting remotely. Standing versus sitting. I haven't scanned everyone's videos. I can almost guarantee everyone will be sitting because that's what we do. We're used to sitting in front of our laptops. Well, things have changed slightly. And if I want to be able to use my body, if I want to be able to tell you that results this year are through the roof, everybody has hit their targets. It's a massive opportunity for us. I can't do that here where I'd normally be. I just physically can't without looking awkward. So have a think about what your message is that you want to engage people with. And if it's right that you should stand back from the screen, then have the confidence to do it. You would do in a normal room that you're presenting in. You can also use it to your advantage in terms of telling a story or a new vision. Here we are in 2020. Life's pretty miserable regarding getting out and about. But now look at us in 2025. Take them to a physically different place and they feel it. We're here because back in 2020, we made some major global changes. And because of it, life's amazing, da, da, da. You see how it works. You can't do that just sitting down. Have a think about your clothing. I was obviously going to wear this today, just like the branding of the slides, because I'm representing something. I'm representing the brand I work for. Have a think about how you want to appear in terms of what's your message, who are you talking to, and what's right for them, not for you. What do they need? That should drive your clothing choices. And these are all things that we can do before we even press on our computer. The last thing we can do, and arguably I think the most important when we want the confidence to be able to engage people with a message, is to picture success. Everybody go with me. Just close your eyes. Close your eyes where you are now. And I want you to imagine. Imagine you are Usain Bolt. You are the fastest man that has ever lived. And you are just about to run the race where you got the world record. And you're down in the blocks. And the crowd is hushed. And you can feel the tension. And it's broken by the pistol going, the crack of the gun, and you're off. And you feel yourself accelerating down the track, pulling away from the rest of the field, leaving them way behind you. You dip, cross the line. The crowd erupts. You open your eyes, and it's a new world record. Come back to the room. That is what Usain Bolt would have done every night. Never once would he have thought, I might come second today. He would have chased record after record after record, picturing success, just like any professional, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a comedian. They picture success. They picture being successful. They picture being funny. They picture being fast, strong. They picture being eloquent. They picture being impactful with a message. How many times before presentations we give is it the opposite? How many times do we say, I'll be nervous? They won't understand me. They won't like what I've got to say. They'll ask me difficult questions. Too many times. When we focus on what we know, what we're good at, and what we've prepared, and we focus on just the positives and the success, failure is eradicated. It's not even in our heads. And that's incredibly powerful when we make that a habit. So what are the things we can do before we even present? There's also things we can do during our presentation. As important. First one, show you're excited. If you're trying to engage people, you have to be engaging. How can I expect Massimo to want to develop his potential to engage people and be excited about that if I can't get excited about that? I can't. The beauty of engaging people is that it's human, and humans mirror. The more I show I'm excited, the more you'll feel it, the more you will naturally become that way, even if before the call you weren't feeling particularly so. It's the power we have as people to be able to influence others. So show you're excited when you're trying to engage people. Seek feedback. I asked Tony for the thumbs up earlier because I genuinely wanted to know he was with me to that point and that he'd understood to that point. In a room, it's so much easier. You just say, everyone with me so far, look around. And you wait for the nod, you wait for that eye contact that was called out earlier, and you can see it and feel it. It's much harder remotely, so don't be afraid to seek the feedback. Does that make sense, Helga?
Yeah.
Perfect. Look down the lens. It's very difficult to do because we're drawn to video screens. We're drawn to ourselves a lot. We're drawn to our slides. And it shows. It's much more powerful when you look down the lens and engage the people. So once you know your message, try and do that more and more. It's something I need to get better at as well. And the last thing, when we're actually presenting, is to bring that body and voice into play. So provide yourself that environment where you can use your body, where you can show excitement, where you can talk about 1, 2, 3 different things. Make people believe that this is important, or that that's what we're achieving. That's what we're achieving. Think about how you can gesticulate, and gesticulate appropriately to support your message. Naz, I can see you. Are you with me so far?
Yep.
Great. So we're moving on. Presentation don'ts. Well, the good news is once we're concentrated so much on all those things we do want to be doing, there's actually not much space for stuff to go wrong. Okay? So I'll keep this short and simple. The first thing is don't really cause distraction. Remember, it's about the audience. It's about them being able to get your message. And to do that, they do not need distracting. They need to be kept where you need them to be. And to that end, don't excessively move around. Don't wander around, particularly when this is face-to-face after this madness of remote calls ends and we get back in the room presenting. Like a caged tiger, it's very distracting. Let's try this. Everybody just stand up where you are. And for those that think they might move when they present, okay, I just want you to go from foot to foot, just foot to foot. Yeah? And this is how people end up moving around when they're presenting. Stand still. And what I'd like you to do now is just to gently, very subtly, lean your body weight forward until you're on the balls of your feet, the bits that would touch the pedal of a bicycle. And now try and do what you were doing before. It's much, much harder when the weight's on the ball of your feet. Please sit. Thank you for going with me then. It's much harder to do it. It's just a little trick to help plant yourself. And if you need that when you stand in front of a camera, do exactly the same. I'm doing it now because I do tend to wander around. It's the bit of the foot, the ball of your foot that you'd normally plant on a pedal of a bicycle. And if you place the weight on that, it's very difficult to unless you consciously pick your leg up. Disruptions. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. We're all in this crazy boat at the moment, homeschooling. It's been one of the happiest parts of my life, whilst I've been trying to keep a business going. Not. It's a pain. We get it. But it's part of life now. It really has become that. Work used to be somewhere I would go. It's now in my home, which was somewhere I wouldn't work. It's become about face. My family haven't changed. Try not to get disrupted. I made a big plea to both of them before this call. Please do not come into the room to grab your Lego. Please do not bounce on the trampoline that's opposite the window during my talk. They understand, but I don't need distracting because it will affect your experience. Think about that when you're thinking about whether or not you need disruptions or distractions. It's about the audience. And the last thing is don't read from a script. If you read from a script, it will appear stilted, unauthentic, a little bit dull, unless it's an amazing story. Okay, my advice is don't. My advice is have bullet points of your message and talk around them. You know your subject matter. You're experts in everything that you do at work. So trust that and just talk around some bullet points rather than reading from scripts. I'll show you a little method for that at the end. Those are really the don'ts. Massimo, is that making sense? Great. So, final part before we actually have a quick chance for a Q&A. Okay, although we started quite late, but I'll whiz through this. Question and answer sessions. They are your friend. I want everyone to understand these are your friend, not something to fear. Why? Because we can have control of them, not the audience. And I'll show you some methods for that. First thing though, why are they our friend? It allows us more opportunity to reiterate our message. More examples can be shared. You can include forgotten points, something you meant to say but forgot and it's bothering you, you can now bring out in the question and answer session to reinforce your message, your clear points. You can actually use it to get research in terms of, is this a good idea? I'd like some support, or I want to know if there's resistance to it. We're not going to know unless we try it out, tell people our thoughts. So use it as a genuine way to get some market research on your ideas. It keeps involved. To Tony's point earlier, ask the audience questions. It's the same in the Q&A. Once the presentation's finished, you still want them with you. You still want them on your message track. Okay. Otherwise, they'll leave and you're not finished yet.
I'm happy to say, Gus, that you have 33 people and that's what you started with. So you're doing all right so far.
Okay, good. Good. You can share further examples. As I said, you know, it's the reiterating the takeaway message, but you can actually say, look, I only had 5 examples because it was right for my 5-minute pitch I gave, but I've got another 15 here that adds serious value. You know, bring them in. And, you know, like a politician, and I would say, don't be snaky or what's the word, dishonest, but you can steer questions to a ready-made message. We do it in job interviews. There will be ways you will want to answer questions, and if you've rehearsed and thought about what you'll be asked, then you can. A couple of things we don't want to do. We don't want to be scoring questions. By that I mean, Chris asks me a question, I say, okay, and I answer the question. Helga asks me a question, I say, Helga, that's a great question. And then I answer the question. And then Naz comes in with a question, I say, Naz, that is the best question I've ever been asked. How does Chris feel? He just got an okay. So it's an easy trap to fall into because we do it out of confidence. We do it because we think we're building rapport with the audience. It's false rapport, and you might put people's noses out of joint a bit. It's a watch out. So the way you answer a question is you don't score it. You thank them for the question and you answer the question. We'll come on to that. But my advice to you is don't qualify the questions on how good they were. Because when you're then asked the really difficult question you didn't want, nobody knows. It just appears like any other question you'd answer. Gives you a bit more control. Final one, keep your answers short. Why? Why do we do that? Anybody? Why do we keep answers short?
Audience attention span.
Absolutely. So Naz, you might ask me a question and it was everything you've only ever wanted to hear. And yet somebody else on the call has no interest at all. If I go on for ages, I've completely lost them. Why else do we keep answers short?
It may not be of interest to other people.
Say again, Charles?
It may not be of interest to other parties, that kind of question.
Absolutely. They've got no interest. They don't want to hear it. They're bored, not listening. They get the phone out. They start organising a dinner date that night. Not
You can take more questions as well. You can take more questions.
Thank you, Lynn. It allows you the opportunity to take more questions and be more inclusive. One last thing. What happens if I do this?
Yeah, avoid saying something you don't want to say.
Exactly, Atul. Thank you. Dig yourself a hole. Yeah? You often see people just start talking. Okay, Atul's just asked me a question, so I'm just going to start speaking, and I'll answer it while I speak. And all of a sudden you realise you're saying the wrong thing, and you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's uncomfortable. And more to the point, it makes you feel uncomfortable and you're aware of it. So think about your answer and then keep it short. Final slide, really. Here's the top tips. That's what we say. Why? What do people normally say at the end of a presentation when it's Q&A time? What do they normally say?
Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? And the tumbleweeds start to slowly blow through the room. And you're there thinking, nobody got a question for me? Was I that bad? Or was I that brilliant? Did they all understand everything? Someone will always have a question, by the way. We don't do that because that gives you a lack of control. We want control of this Q&A. So I look at my watch and I say, everybody, we've now got 5 minutes for questions. What does that give me?
Go.
Why?
Because you can end it after 5 minutes.
Thank you, Phil. Once 5 minutes comes up, I can say, sorry, we're out of time. That's the 5 minutes. Whether it's going brilliantly or whether it's going terribly. And if you've prepared properly, it will never be going terribly because you will have thought about the questions you will be asked. It's all part of the preparation. We then say, who has the first question? What does that tell you?
There's going to be more than one.
I've got an appetite. I don't want one question. I don't want 2 or 3. I want loads. Who's got the first one? Who's in control? Me?
You. You again.
Me again. Second point of control. And it's to give you confidence. We've now got 5 minutes for questions. Who's got the first question? You're saying to yourself, I've got this. And you're saying to the audience, they've got this. Someone asks you a question. Your response is simply, thank you. Chris asked me a question. Thank you, Chris.
Could I just, so there was exactly this tumbleweed experience last evening on a call I was on. And take what you just said in the first 2 points and you say, who's the first question? If there is huge reticence in that audience at that point, you still get the tumbleweed, surely. How do you manage that?
Let me come on to that, Sean, in 2 bullets. It was Sean, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2 bullets time. Okay? Thank you. When you get the question, you repeat or reframe it to remove negativity. By reframe it to remove negativity, I mean put yourself in a place where you've got something you want to answer. Take the negativity away and answer something that is more palatable, is my advice. Why would you reframe a question or repeat it or remove the negativity? What does it give you?
Control over the question and the answer.
And open. It's much easier to speak when you're taking the positive and opening up in a positive way. You can use all that body language in a more positive, giving fashion.
Absolutely.
Shrinking in the negativity.
Absolutely, Sean. And to Atul's point, it gives you more control of the question. 3rd point of control. It also gives us that little split second, because we're all bright people, we're all very good at what we do, and we've all researched thoroughly our subject matter, and we've all thought about what people are going to ask us anyway. It gives us that split second to subliminally, in the background, subconsciously probably more the word, work out the answer as well. So by repeating or reframing the question, you're giving yourself that subconscious time just to work it through a bit. You then answer the question. My advice to you is respond to questions positively. So Atul asks us a question on the business results for Q1, and I say something like, Q1 has gone better than we expected. So it's a positive start. The evidence of that is X, Y, and Z. And for that reason, we're well placed as we go into Q3 because of the efforts we put in Q1. It's the best way to answer questions. A positive context, the evidence of why that should be the case, answer the question, and then try and finish on a high as well. And it will naturally steer people to asking more positive-based questions, which, let's face it, we'd prefer. So this is to your point, Sean, that you asked on the tumbleweed still coming. Imagine this is the first question you've asked though. So who has the next question? But this time, to Sean's point, there's still tumbleweed. Or it's the first question you've asked and there's still tumbleweed. When there's no question, you provide your own and kick off the ball rolling. So Alan is presenting. Alan says, who has the next question? There's no question. He's feeling a little bit tumbleweedy, so he says, okay, a question I'm often asked is, and then you provide your own question with your own amazing answer. Or a question I thought you might ask me specifically today. What? Provide your own question with your own brilliantly phrased answer.
This is too shy. I'm sure you've got this question.
And then finally it's time, and that 5 minutes is nearly up. You say, who has the final question? Another point of control. So no matter how it's going, whether it's brilliant, or whether they're trying to go at you, at this stage, you're saying one more question. Now imagine that that final question is actually quite a tricky one to answer. And the feeling might not be where you want it to be. You shut down the session and say, that's it? No. We have one final chance to engage and influence this audience, and that's we restate the summary of our main message, and then we close it down. So again, Josh has asked me a question. It was difficult to answer. It's not left the mood how I wanted it. So I answered the question. That was the final question. I say something along the lines of, okay, that was the final question, but before you go, I just want to leave you with this. And that's where you give them your key message, your positive summary, whatever it is that you're trying to impart, whatever it is you're trying to engage them with, and then you close it down. And that's the end of the Q&A. And if you follow that frame, and I'll share it with Chris afterwards, so in slides in a PDF so that you can have it all, etc.
I've got it, so yeah, I can send that through. Yeah,
I've actually got it a bit more explicit with the top tips I called out as well, Chris.
Great, thank you, thank you.
But if you rehearse this, you think about what people are going to ask you in the Q&A. You prepare for that interview, as it were, just like you would if a job you really wanted. And you rehearse before you actually do the presentation. You think about your surroundings. You think about your message. How am I going to involve my body? How am I going to be positive? How am I going to engage people? Then you'll hit the mark. Everyone's come up.
Okay.
It's 1:30, Chris. I think it's slightly late.
Do you want to flip your screen?
So, there's a few things we can do in the remote world.
Yeah.
You can write yourself some bullet points that you want to cover. Because we can, and no one knows. Don't put yourselves under pressure that you don't need. In and amongst the Lego, you'll see there's some stuff that makes relative sense there. So use the technology to your advantage like that as well. Normally, I've got another screen up and running with all your fantastic faces on it, so I can gauge more than 4 people at a time as I'm presenting, because it's important that we get that feedback. But these are things that you can use. However, the technology alone will not engage, retain, and captivate people. That's you. In the way you use your voice, in the way you prepare, and the way you physically deliver that message.
Got some comments, Gus. I'll just sort of read a couple of them out. Agree. It's a great in team presentations. I've changed from "Are there any questions?" to "What questions do you have?" And it has such a difference in engagement and questions at the end. Best lunch and learn I've undertaken in ages. Brilliant, thank you. Such a lot of useful tips. I'll incorporate some of that. Great advice, thanks. Is it distracting to take questions during the presentation, or is it just good engagement? That's a question in itself, I guess.
What's that one, mister?
Would you prefer to take questions during, or do you prefer to wait to the end?
So when you've got half an hour window like this, my answer to that is no, because you've got your material that you want to deliver, and then you take the Q&A. On something more interactive, or if it's certainly talking with employees, I recommend a two-way interaction as much as possible.
Right. Okay. Okay. So that's good. So if it's a short, sharp, and quick presentation, you need to get your point across, then leave the questions to the end. Essentially, yeah. Okay. Has who's got the next question? See what I did there?
Just see Charles's comment. Charles's comment is fantastic. Yeah, I might try it as well. Yeah. Who has the next question?
Gus, I've got a question. With regards to backgrounds, I see there's lots of interesting backgrounds. I think Atoll has got the best one. Wonderful wallpaper there. What's your advice on to kind of having these kind of artificial backgrounds that you can kind of get preloaded? Is that just a big no-no, or do you just go for a blank wall like you've got?
No, thanks, Alan. It's so the question is backgrounds and what's right for the audience, right? So for you guys, I didn't want any focus on anything. I didn't want you wondering what books I read or why I like a certain type of picture, or that's not right for this call. So my advice to you is think about who your audience is. For instance, I'm looking at Joshua's now, which is a very professional, just like Chris's, is a very professional business one that might be absolutely right for a certain audience. Pick your audience, and that drives it. If they want to be on that crazy beach with the waves on the virtual video, take them there. It's case dependent.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I've got another hour. I know you guys don't, but any questions, please? And I'm happy to hang on after the call as well, Chris.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody got anything?
Just to say that was really, really good. Very, very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. Learned a lot from that for my professional Zoom meetings going forwards.
I'm going to adopt these tips. I've got to do one in front of 250 people, so learned a lot on that. So I'll get rid of the funny background, but that's just on Zoom. I can't do that. We'll be using Google, but a lot of good tips there. Thank you.
Chris has got my email address as well if you want to get in touch.
Yeah, the actual Gus's email address is actually on the reminder. I put Gus in
right.
in the
Okay.
Copy.
Gus, it was great. Thank you.
So if you want to have a chat with Gus, just drop him an email directly, or you can go through me at CICMQ@CICM.com, which is on the background there. I bought a photographic background during the week, which is a 1 meter by 2 meter thing, and you can that was I think it was 80 quid, right? And it's on a stand, and you can put it behind yourself. I did it yesterday, and it works. Yeah, if you've got a messy study like me, then it's a useful thing to do. Also, the issue with these virtual backgrounds is sometimes you get black patches like that, for example.
Yeah.
That is actually the background that's behind me, which is the photographic background that I bought just behind my arm there. So it does make a difference. So yeah. So anybody else got any other questions they want to ask Gus? I think that is pretty much it. Okay. I just want to very, very briefly share the screen for next week. And then I'll round off shortly after. So this is so next week, as I said, the Thursday, the 18th, 11th is at 11 o'clock. 60-minute schedule, fraud update and industry volatility. That's with a guy called Grant McDonald. I've known Grant for many, many years. He's a market engagement director and he's head of financial crime investigation at Experian. So that'll be an interesting session as well. If you're able to join that, then please do. I'm just going to just going to stop the recording now. So I just want to say thank you very, very much indeed, Gus. That was like the last time I saw it. Every time I see it, I think, wow, I really must remember that stuff. So thank you very much indeed. It was a brilliant presentation. And I think we've got a lot of fantastic feedback there. Excellent tips, especially the background and posture. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much for a lot of useful tips that I'll incorporate. Best lunch and learn I've undertaken so far. So thanks very much indeed, Gus. I'm just going to stop the recording now.